What's good, YouTube? How you doing? It's your boy True Thought. Hopefully, you guys can hear me pretty well. I'm have a new microphone that I'm testing out here, and I'm also back in my old location. There's also something going on behind me with the washing machine, so hopefully that's not coming through too bad or too much. If it is, please let me know, or I'll hear it when I listen to this video again, and I'll have to make sure I don't do that again the next time. But anyway, it's good to see everybody. Hopefully, everyone has been doing good. Everyone's been, staying safe and know what they got to do. Let me adjust this real quick. There we go. Try to block that light out the way. Here we go. Hopefully, everybody's been good and staying safe, and doing what they got to do. Hopefully, people are getting their vaccines. If you made the decision not to get vaccines, then hopefully you're doing your part to keep everyone in your family and your immediate circle safe. So yeah, real quick, I just want to make a quick video. I've been looking at my videos lately and they've been running like 30 minutes, 20 minutes. That's way too long. So I'm trying to keep this down to about anywhere between 10 to 12 minutes. I'm already at 2.5 minutes being live, so my time is going to be cut short. So I'm going to kind of briefly go through some stuff. I'll only go longer if we have some people jump on the live who add comments or ask some questions. So the title or the purpose of me making this video is to talk about how the Army changed my mind about firearms. So I want to talk about how going into this process of joining the Army, how my mind has kind of changed in some ways as it relates to owning firearms. So for me, I come from a family and really a background where firearms were really shunned on. So I had zero experience with firearms coming into the Army. So for those that don't know, I joined the Army National Guard at age 34. I enlisted at age 34. So I was pretty old. I was an old guy when I enlisted. And being that old guy, normally you'll have people my age who've shot firearms at least once, maybe a 9mm here or there. But I had never shot a 9mm. I can't even remember really. I may have touched or held a 9mm weapon like maybe once my entire life. So I just kind of came from a family background that didn't really look favorably on firearms, not because they didn't believe that people had the right to defend themselves, but because of the narrative when it came to Black people and guns that you just hear throughout the media. You see on television shows and movies and all that, and music and things of that nature. So they just didn't want me, my parents didn't really want me to be associated with guns as a Black man in America. And so we just kind of came up, really looking negatively at guns. I also, growing up Christian, still am Christian, but the Christian tradition that I came from also looked down on having any kind of weapons, because the idea was that you shouldn't need that. You shouldn't need that because you should be trusting God to take care of you and protect you and all that good stuff, which I still believe, right? So just having that kind of a background, a family that wasn't friendly to guns, and also coming from a church background that wasn't friendly to guns, really kind of kept me from experiencing that. Once I joined the Army, age 34, obviously that changes, right? And so what happens is in basic training, for those who haven't gone, in basic training, you are constantly with your weapon throughout the entire process. So really you get there and probably like your first couple of days, you've been issued your weapon and you don't leave that weapon. It's with you everywhere you go, no matter where it is, from the very time that you get it almost all the way to the end of your basic training experience. So you're constantly with that weapon, which makes you more comfortable with it. It makes you very comfortable with handling it. You start to learn it a lot better. So you learn the parts and the pieces and how to take it apart and how to put it together. Essentially, the assembly and the disassembly. And so it just makes you grow. It almost becomes an extension of yourself, almost like an additional body part. So just kind of being around an environment where I was consistently around it. There were people, everyone, all the other soldiers who were in basic training with me, had there. So you're just consistently seeing soldiers with their weapons. So eventually, you don't even notice it anymore. It becomes you start to notice it when someone doesn't have one, right? So that kind of environment kind of changes your perspective. If you come from an environment that doesn't really promote gun ownership or firearms practice at all, once you get into that type of environment, you start to get used to it, to the point where, like I said, when you see someone who doesn't have it, that's what really stands out. Um, so being in that type of environment really kind of made me more comfortable with it. The next thing is kind of related, is learning how to handle the weapon, and by weapon I mean rifle. Learning how to handle the rifle and also properly care for it. So those are two things that are extremely important when it comes to firearms. Coming from, again, an environment where we weren't really encouraged to engage in firearms at all, um, it really comes from a stance of, because you're not around them, you only hear the bad things about them. So you hear about the gun violence in the neighborhood. So you see images of war, or you see them in television shows or in movie or movies. And so obviously when you're seeing or and hearing firearms in that context, it's going to always be at the extreme. It's going to always be the most violent or the most negative coverage. And so because of that, it can instill within the person no fear of it. I mean, just even I know people who don't even want to touch the gun because they feel like something bad could happen. They're just afraid of what could happen. And so being in the environment of basic training, you learn how to, one, properly uh, or safely handle your weapon, right? So, your muzzle is never pointed at yourself or at anyone else. You learn essentially the safety rules of how to handle it. Make sure, your first thing they teach you is keeping your finger off the trigger and making sure the muzzle isn't pointed again towards anybody else or to you or to yourself. So you kind of go through those safety rules. You practice them every single day. There's 5 of them. You practice them every single day. In basic training, obviously, it's a little extreme as far as the implementation of it. If you break one of those 5 safety rules, then there's a price to pay for that. But learning how to safely handle the weapon, in addition to being around the rifles and other people who had rifles all the time, again, it makes you more comfortable. And then learning how to properly care for the firearm, so understanding how to clean it, understanding the components of it, and why you need to make sure that things don't get damaged, why you need to make sure things are clean and well oiled, understanding how to fix jamming issues, those kinds of things. Again, it takes you from a place where you're afraid of a weapon, to a place where now you're more comfortable with it, because you now know how to handle it. You know how to direct its purpose. You understand, one, how to properly take care of it, but also you understand the importance of safety, because you've learned the negative actions or the detrimental actions of not handling that weapon safely. So learning how to do those things has really helped change my mindset in firearms. So that entire process has taken me from a stance of not ever really having any interest in firing or owning a firearm, to being completely comfortable with firing and owning firearms. It's taken me from a stance of looking at gun owners as people who are just like, crazy people who just want to be violent or whatever, to understanding the principle of wanting to keep your home safe, wanting to keep your family safe, and also just wanting to exercise your Second Amendment right, which is available to everyone. So I've made that switch. I made that switch pretty quickly, really. Towards the end of basic training, I was completely fine. I went from anti-gun myself to essentially pro Second Amendment guy, pro gun guy, with caveats, right? Which will make me a little different than some people out there. So let's talk about that. As with everything in our country, everything has essentially been politicized, and that will include pro-gun crowd as well as the anti-gun crowd. And a lot of times when you're talking about these two groups here, you're talking about extremes a lot of times. Clearly, there are people within each group that have nuanced ideas, but the ones who get the most attention are the ones who push many of your more extreme ideas. So, for example, you may have on a pro-gun side, where you may have someone who believes that have the ability to own all of the same type of weapons that the military owns, which doesn't make any sense if you think about it. Logistically, economically. It just doesn't make sense, right? There are some weapons within the military that were made specifically for war purposes. They're made for destruction purposes within the context of war. They cost millions of dollars. They require multiple people to man them and operate them. That just isn't practical for your everyday citizen, right? Your everyday citizen, and this is my opinion, your everyday citizen doesn't need to have some of the same weapons. For example, a tank. Like, the everyday citizen doesn't need a modern tank that is still militarized and can cruise down the civilian streets, because again, that weapon specifically was built for war purposes, right? But then on the other side, you have some people on the anti-gun crowd who want to ban all guns, who want to erase essentially the Second Amendment, which is wrong, because the Second Amendment is there for a reason. And that Second Amendment is a right that all Americans have the freedom to enjoy. And so if you have that mindset that that we're just going to ban all guns and take everyone's guns who already owns them, I can't agree with you on that side either. So I fall somewhere in the middle, or middle-ish somewhere. For me personally, I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe that people should be able to enjoy their right to bear arms. But I also believe that there needs to be really some common sense there. Like, again, if you're pushing to hold weapons that are made for war and destruction and all that kind of good stuff, well, then I can't side with you either. I completely believe in home defense. I completely believe in a person's right to carry, whether it's concealed carry or open carry, again, for protection. I believe in, I'm a supporter of people who shoot recreationally, who shoot for sport. I support people who hunt. So all those things I'm down with, but I'm just not down with, hey, I should be able to own a nuke because the military has nukes, or we shouldn't have guns in this country, and that would solve our violence problem. So let's scrap away the Second Amendment. I can't get with either one of those issues, or either one of those positions. So for me personally, as a person who started out very anti-gun, in the sense of I didn't want to be associated with the violence or with the image, and I was probably afraid of the capabilities of firearms before joining the Army. Since joining the Army, I'm completely comfortable with those weapons, with those guns. I shoot them myself. And again, I believe in the Second Amendment. I just want us to, again, have a more of a nuanced and calm down conversation about it, because the conversation too often gets pushed to the extremes, just like everything else. And then, once you go into that space, you have to either, you have to pick a tribe to stay with, or pick another tribe. And I don't like any of that kind of stuff. So in conclusion, those are the ways that the Army has changed my mind on gun ownership. I would love to see some comments later on about anybody who went through a similar transition, or people who, who fall on those issues, whether it be pro-gun or anti-gun, just kind of explaining your position. What I hope to find are some people with some very nuanced positions that can kind of see elements of both sides, that don't demonize individuals. All right. So you guys take care. Have a good rest of your weekend. And I will talk to you again, 7:30 p.m. Every Sunday. All right. Take care.